moment you've witnessed, maybe online, maybe right there, that really felt like, well, like a turning point, a moment where you could just feel things shifting, but you felt, powerless to change anything yourself.
Yeah, those moments stick with you.
Exactly. So today, we're doing a deep dive into a really powerful piece of art that came directly out of a moment like that. It's a bronze sculpture of George Floyd, created by the Israeli artist Dan Reisner.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how one uh, incredibly tragic event can echo so far and wide and spark such a concrete physical response from an artist.
It really is. And we're not just looking at the sculpture in isolation. We've pulled together some really interesting sources to help us unpack it.
Right.
We've got bits from a presentation about the sculpture itself. There's a white paper that looks at the wider issues of police brutality. An article from a German social science journal giving a sort of societal viewpoint. And also an interview with Reisner himself from Daily Art magazine.
So a real mix of perspectives there. It lets us look beyond just the object, the artwork itself.
Yeah, exactly.
We can get into the why behind it, how it was made, but also, crucially, how different people received it, how they felt about it.
So our mission here is really to trace the whole story of this sculpture from that first spark of creation through the artistic process and looking at its impact and what it means now.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's dive in. What was the immediate trigger? What actually sparked Reisner to create this piece?
Well, according to Reisner himself, the absolute catalyst was seeing Darnella Fraser's video, the video of George Floyd's murder.
Right.
He saw it just, I think, 2 days after it happened. And he talks about feeling this very intense, internal, almost overwhelming need to do something.
To respond.
A strong need to respond. Wow, and his background is relevant here too, isn't it? I read he was a combat medic in Lebanon, dealt with PTSD.
Yes, exactly. The presentation material mentions that and suggests it gave him a sort of deep empathy, maybe, for suffering that often gets overlooked, a personal connection to trauma. That makes sense.
Yeah, that experience seems key. He spoke about witnessing intense suffering and feeling this drive to, as he put it, attend the ones whose sufferings are almost invisible.
So that experience likely fed directly into his reaction to Floyd's death.
It seems so. It pushed him past just feeling bad about it towards needing to actively express the sheer weight of it all. But interestingly, he said the initial impulse wasn't really about creating a formal memorial.
Oh.
Yeah, he said the work wasn't created from a place of commemoration. It was a deep need to express the distressed energy of this tragedy.
So less of a plan statement, more of an immediate gut reaction, almost involuntary.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the feeling you get from his words.
Okay, so tell us a bit about Reisner, the artist. What's his background? The Daily Art interview touches on this.
Right. So he grew up near Tel Aviv. Apparently spent a lot of time outdoors in nature, especially in a wadi, a dry riverbed.
Okay.
He actually called that his first studio, where he started messing around with natural stuff like wood and clay.
So very hands-on from the beginning.
Seems like it. He did go on to study art formally, started with painting, but then shifted more towards sculpture. He talks about really connecting with materials, the physical, tactile aspect of them.
That connection to the physical, that feels relevant to choosing bronze later on.
I think so, too. That concrete, tactile part in defining our world, as he put it.
Which brings us right to the sculpture itself. Can you describe it for us and talk about some of the key artistic choices Reisner made?
Sure. So it was made in 2020. It's a life-size bronze bust of George Floyd, and it's now actually in the permanent collection of the International African American Museum.
Right, the IAAM in Charleston.
Exactly, in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And its official title there is simply Floyd.
Okay. And the pose.
The pose is very striking. Floyd's head is resting gently on his left ear. His eyes are closed. It's not depicting the struggle.
No.
It's more, as the museum describes it, like a suspended moment between life and death, capturing that edge, that vulnerability, maybe even transcendence.
That idea of a suspended moment, it's powerful. Reisner himself said he was trying to capture the fragile moment between life and death, right? He stressed it wasn't sleep, it was murder.
Yes, he was very clear on that distinction. And then there's the base. You notice these rings.
Concentric rings, yeah. What do they signify?
There are 8 of them. They directly represent the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that Floyd was held down.
Wow, that's specific.
Very specific. And importantly, there are 2 breaks in those rings. Reisner explained that those breaks symbolize trauma and finality. He saw the whole piece as becoming a kind of capsule of the story, like evidence.
Evidence cast in bronze. That choice of material feels so deliberate, too.
Absolutely. Bronze isn't temporary. It speaks to permanence, to monumentality. It's like
Right.
he's freezing that awful, fleeting moment, making it solid, unavoidable in our collective memory.
So it can't just be forgotten.
Exactly. Now, about focusing just on the head in that
Huh.
specific
Yeah,
position.
why just the head? Did he talk about that?
He did in the Daily Art interview. He pointed back to Darnella Fraser's video footage.
Okay.
He mentioned how the way it was filmed, the framing, often focused on Floyd's face, his head. He said, our focus was on him. The rest of his body was hidden behind the police car.
I see. So it reflects the perspective many people had.
And he also contrasted it with art history.
Yeah.
The motif of a head resting on its side like in Brancusi's Sleeping Muse.
Ah, right.
But he used that contrast to emphasize this wasn't sleep. This wasn't peace. It was death. Floyd's head, his pain, his voice, that became the focal point, demanding attention, demanding change.
It's incredible how these different layers, the pose, the material, the base, the focus, all work together. It creates something really resonant.
Definitely.
And this piece didn't just stay in his studio, did it? It went public pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. He shared photos of it on Facebook, and it took off, spread like wildfire online.
Really?
Yeah, the initial post got like tens of thousands of reactions, comments, shares. It clearly struck a massive chord with people all over the world.
Which, given the subject matter, probably led to a whole range of reactions, I imagine.
A very wide spectrum, yes. The Daily Art piece talks about this. You had some people criticizing him, a white artist depicting black pain. That's a complex discussion in itself.
Yeah.
But then you also had many others, especially black individuals, who expressed this really deep connection to it, but also fear. Some reactions were incredibly raw, comparing the feeling to witnessing a Holocaust. It really shows how deep that wound is.
That's intense. A powerful reminder of the trauma. Were there positive responses, too?
Yes, definitely. A really significant moment was when Terrence Floyd, George Floyd's brother, saw it and expressed his appreciation for the work.
Oh, wow.
Reisner called that a very important and special experience. And beyond individual reactions, it sparked a lot of discussion in the media, both in Israel and internationally.
So it generated conversation, which seems like part of the goal.
It certainly did. And all that public attention, that resonance, eventually led to formal recognition.
Which brings us back to the museum acquisition.
Exactly. In July 2023, the IAM in Charleston acquired it for their permanent collection, giving it the title Floyd. That's a major step, right? It really cements its place as not just art, but a historical artifact, too.
Absolutely. So stepping back a bit, what was Reisner aiming for beyond just the artistic expression? What wider context was he engaging with?
Well, the white paper we looked at really lays out the context of trauma within African-American communities and communities of color due to police violence.
Right. Often seen through viral videos, like the one Reisner saw.
Precisely. The community as unwilling eyewitnesses. Reisner himself talks a lot about believing in the potency of dialogue. He sees art as having the power to ignite change.
So using art to push back against inaction.
Yeah, he actually contrasts his act of making the sculpture with what he calls the bystander effect, that he feels is too common in our individualistic work.
Interesting. So is a deliberate act of not being a bystander?
That's the strong impression. He hopes the art can raise awareness, spark conversations that might lead to, actual solutions.
And is there potential for it to reach even wider audiences?
Well, the interview mentioned the Floyd family was interested in possibly showing the work with the George Floyd Foundation.
Okay.
Which would obviously expand its reach and role in remembrance and dialogue.
Yeah.
And Reisner, who has a background in making large public sculptures,
Right.
he's apparently open to the idea of Floyd becoming a large outdoor piece someday.
Yeah.
A constant public reminder.
A permanent monument in public space. That would be powerful. Now let's bring in that scholarly view from the German journal, Mittelweg 36. How did they frame this?
They took a broader societal view. They argued that George Floyd's death was a fundamental betrayal of what they called the modern promises.
Modern promises, meaning?
Promises of equality, happiness, freedom from fear, freedom from violence, basic tenets we sort of expect society to uphold.
Okay, I see.
And they saw Reisner's sculpture, his memorial, as significant because it, how do they put it? It restores the dignity stripped of him without erasing the violence he endured.
So it affirms his humanity while still acknowledging the brutality of his death.
Exactly. It doesn't sanitize it, but it recenters his dignity. From their perspective, it's not just personal grief. It's an act of resistance against letting that injustice, that dehumanization, be the final word.
A powerful assertion of his worth.
Mm-hmm. It really highlights how art can function in these moments, shaping memory and understanding.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together. We have Dan Reisner's immediate, almost primal reaction to seeing the video.
Yeah, driven by his own background and empathy.
Channeling that into this bronze sculpture packed with symbolism, the pose, the rings, the material itself.
Right, which then explodes into the public sphere, sparking intense and varied reactions from criticism to deep connection and appreciation.
And eventually finding a permanent home in a major museum, solidifying its significance.
And all the while, it's framed by this larger context of systemic injustice, the power of witnessing, and the potential role of art in demanding change and preserving dignity.
When you lay it all out, you really see how one artwork can become this incredible focal point for witnessing, for dialogue, for memory.
It's a testament to those moments of tragedy, yes, but also to that urgent, ongoing need for change and remembrance.
This whole deep dive into Floyd, this single sculpture, just shows how many layers there are. You've got the artist's personal journey, the deliberate artistic choices, the explosion of public feeling around it, and its place now in history. It really makes you think. Considering all these layers, all the intense reactions this one piece stirred up, what role do you think art can play, or maybe should play, in how we respond to and understand these huge social and political moments? Can you think of other times when art has really acted as that kind of catalyst for reflection, for conversation? That's something for you, the listener, to maybe chew on after we finish up here.